Alright, YouTube, I knew that there would be more NSA revelations. It's gone from a flood to a trickle now, but there is something new and potentially quite concerning going on here. There's a link in the description to this. It's from the South China Morning Post, but it's on other sites as well, but this one's, more well written. WikiLeaks vows to reveal second country where NSA is recording all mobile phone calls. Now, apparently what's happening is there's a program called Somalget that the NSA uses. It's active in the Bahamas, and it's used to record every cell conversation in the country. Uh, Not metadata, by the way, the actual transcript, the actual physical recording of the call is logged for up to a month, so it can be listened to. Now, they claim, well, only a small proportion are actually listened to. The Bahamas are a tax haven. It's also a British crown colony, which means that the British presumably knew about this, and if not, are probably quite pissed. But there's now a second country that's going to be revealed as one that's been targeted. This at least one other country that's been targeted by this program, which does not intercept just metadata; it intercepts actual physical audio transcripts of the calls. Um, Kitty, can you please stop that? Um, the obvious possible countries run from China, Russia, countries like that, some of our European allies, Turkey, Germany. Uh, I would hesitate to put stock in the idea that the NSA has the ability to mass record all cell conversations in countries with that level of population. I think it's more likely that it's probably Switzerland. This and Greenwald came out and said that the reason why he hadn't released this stuff is because he thought that it would actually cause literal deaths. Of course, Assange and WikiLeaks don't have a problem with releasing this material, and it should be released. So people should, know what's going on. If it's Switzerland, then logically speaking, the NSA has the full audio transcripts of calls between multi billionaires and their banking partners in Switzerland. Switzerland is a haven for accounts that often are not. They're a little bit on the dubious side. Nobody's really sure where the money's from. Switzerland is a very mysterious country when it comes to its banking system. It's extremely private. As Switzerland is essentially the equivalent of some, massive dwarf city full of gold, where nobody really talks about who owns what. And this has been one of the keys to their success. But if the United States government, through the NSA, has been listening into audio transcripts of wealthy businessmen and bankers and heads of state and probably cartel heads and criminal syndicates in Switzerland, that could cause deaths. For one thing, because the criminals and the cartels will start assassinating people potentially. Foreign heads of state will be pissed off. People in those countries whose heads of state potentially were, being listened to would be pissed off. They might riot. That would cause grave concern. There was a redacted little snippet that was released. Switzerland, if you change it to about the same font style, does fit the redaction. But there's another one that fits, and that would be the Vatican. This would be 1,000 times more concerning than spying on Switzerland, and it's fully within the means of the NSA to spy on, cell traffic going through the Vatican, because it's a small little, essentially just a little neighborhood in Rome, or just outside of Rome, that has only a few thousand people in it at most, usually at a time, including all of the guards and so forth. That's not, that's even more than the permanent residents that actually technically live there. Um, if the United States was spying on Vatican cell traffic, I think you're about to see all hell break loose. It's pretty sad because spying on Switzerland and spying on the potential transactions involving trillions of dollars normally would take the cake as far as something that would be concerning and potentially cause unrest all over the world. Businesses suddenly shutter up because the owner knows that their Swiss account is probably compromised, people's account numbers are compromised, people's how they got that money, where it's stored, and so forth is all compromised. That would normally take the cake as far as something that would be concerning to the world at large. It's pretty sad that that's actually number two, and that it's far worse if we were spying on the Vatican as a country. I shouldn't say as a country, though, because most people in this country don't even support what the NSA is doing. So I should say the government and its cronies within these alphabet soup agencies, especially like the NSA and the CIA. Um, Oddly enough, when this is going to be released, the Pope's going to be in Israel. That's the third most likely possibility is Israel. I would say number four would be like Saudi Arabia. It would be a little bit more difficult to monitor that high a population, although the average Saudi doesn't even have cell service. It's mostly, the wealthy, or at least the upper middle class, that would have access to that. In any of these cases, we're pissing off someone that's probably, you can assume that the country that will be mentioned is probably a U.S. ally. It probably doesn't have a particularly large population. And it's probably either a tax haven or a country with which we have somewhat strained relations. And all four of these, Switzerland fits the bill. It's completely a tax haven. It's got a smaller population. Billions of dollars move through Switzerland on a constant basis. So that one would be, I guess, my top choice. The Vatican, a close number two. It would cause most of Latin America to take up arms and demand that we, essentially fuck ourselves. The Italians would be pissed off. The Spaniards would be pissed off. The French would be pissed off. The Vatican itself, what would happen if the Pope came out and said this is a grave error by the Obama administration, shame on him? A lot of Democrats are Catholics. You could even see potentially riots and protests in the United States among some of these communities that actually retain their Catholic religiosity, particularly in the South, where Hispanic immigrants tend to be more religious than like the Irish Catholics. As a general rule, I'm not trying to stereotype them, but generally they're more religious. As Saudi, Israel, obviously, again with the Pope in Israel as well at the same time. If it turns out that we're collecting all of the mobile phone traffic from Israel, that's going to piss them off. It shouldn't, because they conduct spying on us all the time and then turn around and sell, weapons schematics and everything to China. It really shouldn't, but there are a lot of Zionists in this country that for some strange reason support this particular regime and claim that it's a legitimate biblical government, which it's not. It's completely run by Eastern European oligarch individuals, but I'll leave that alone for now. And then Saudi Arabia, I think, would be number four on the list, because Saudis, we have a strained relationship with them. They're more buddy-buddy with Israel than we are, and conduct more material back and forth across borders with Israel than even we do. Of course, the Saudi Arabians are the ones that control the madrasas. They control most of the militant groups that we've been funding and training and setting off to go kill civilians. If it turns out that we're monitoring that traffic, particularly, here's the real concern. Simply naming this nation could cause deaths, according to Greenwald. How much more, then, if this comes with, transcripts from its heads of state and its business leaders? What if that turns out to be the Vatican? Suddenly the entire rotten crotch of the Vatican, as far as sex abuse and so forth, and their probable money laundering is broken open. That would cause chaos. What about the Swiss? What if it turns out that the peace-loving, democratic, pacifistic Swiss are actually hiding trillions of dollars in Nazi gold or something? Or they're hiding money from the North Koreans and the Chinese, or some terrorist group? That would definitely destabilize the Swiss, at least. What about Saudi Arabia and Israel? What if transcripts are released of this material? What if Snowden got these transcripts, or somebody else sent them in, and these are released to the public? It could cause an uproar, because for one thing, the United States might see that these really aren't allies of ours, and the people over there despise us completely and are stabbing us in the back. Which could cause huge backlash. Number two, what about those countries themselves? If Israel gets pissed off enough at the United States, and they've alluded to this before, they will attack Iran unilaterally, and they won't give a shit what the United States says about it. because they want more land and they want to be the dominant power in that general region. They don't, they're not antagonistic towards Turkey because it's a NATO ally, and they're not as antagonistic anymore towards the Egyptians because the Egyptians don't give a shit. But as far as the Syrians and the Lebanese and the Jordanians and the Iraqis and the Kuwaitis and the Iranians and so forth, they want to go whole hog in destroying them from off the face of the earth and probably take over as much land as they can. Just as their Ariel Sharon said, oh, occupy every hillside because every hillside we build on is ours when the partition comes. Well, what if they then invade Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria and nuke them all to the Stone Age and then just occupy the land and say, oy vey, we're already here. You're not going to kick us off our land, are you? And then some of this land will get grabbed up by the Saudis will probably grab up Iraq because they want more land too, more oil. Whatever the result here, the nation that's going to be named in roughly 72 hours through Wikileaks, Greenwald at the very least says it's probably going to cause deaths when the name is released. That does indicate either a tax haven nation like Switzerland, a close military ally like Israel, or a sort of symbolic state like the Vatican, which may not itself be of any strategic value, but which has a religious or some other ethnic overtone to it that has importance to people. Saudi Arabia also, if you're collecting calls from around Mecca from some of these clerics and so forth, that would have great significance to the Sunnis living in that general part of the world, because they take their religion seriously and frequently stone and behead people as a result of it. In any of these cases, any of these nations, I think those four are the most likely. You would see potentially riots. You would see protests, even within the United States itself, especially as is the case with the Vatican. Switzerland to a lesser extent. Where do you think people like Mitt Romney and John McCain hide their money when they don't want to pay taxes on it? They hide it in Switzerland or the Caymans. The Cayman Islands, I guess, would be a number 5 because, it featured heavily in the last election. But I think, unfortunately, Switzerland and the Vatican are the two most likely states. And in either case, it's the hammer's going to fall hard on people like Obama if either of those states, or the Israelis, or the Saudis, or the any NATO ally, Turkey, any of these groups, Germany, any of these countries, if it turns out we are monitoring all cell service, hell is going to break loose. It'll be interesting to see what nation is actually named and why, in particular, it would cause death. But I'm going to put those forth. I'm going to say I guess that it's Switzerland, and if not, then I guess it's the Vatican. If not, either Israel or Saudi Arabia. I don't think that it would involve Brazil or Argentina or any of these other countries. I think those four are the only candidates that I find particularly likely. So I eagerly await the next 72 hours. I was already looking forward to the meteor storm we're getting on the same night while the Pope happens to be in Israel. It's like, oh, wow, maybe these Christians are right after all. No, but I can at least joke about it. But that's about all. Peace out.